I wanted to discuss a topic that has been on my mind for a while, and I figure what better way to do that than with a knitting chat. Eh? First of all, I did not make the sweater I'm wearing. I got it from Express like 12 years ago. If you've been around for a while, then you probably follow me on Instagram. And you probably noticed that I haven't been as active on Instagram as I have been in the past. And at first, that was not intentional, but then it became very intentional. And I think it is a change that might be around for a while. And I just wanted to discuss why I stepped away from Instagram and also how it has changed my knitting hobby for the better. I started my yarn centric Instagram account, I think, before the pandemic truly took over the world. So it was before March of 2020. I recently gotten back into crocheting, and I realized that there was quite a community online, both on Instagram and on YouTube, that was very focused on the thing I'm interested in. So I made the account to connect with other crocheters and crafters. It opened up the world of like online fiber hobbies, and I loved it. I leaned all the way in. And I just loved posting on Instagram, sharing what I worked on. I probably wouldn't be sitting here with this YouTube channel if it weren't for Instagram. But I think after a while, Instagram for me became more of a problem and less of a source of joy and inspiration. My screen time was insane, and I wish I'd taken screenshots of like what my screen time looked like probably this time last year. It was unacceptable. It was honestly embarrassing. I was spending 8+ hours a day on my phone. 5+ of those hours were strictly on Instagram. And the thing about Instagram is if you're on Instagram, you're scrolling. You're not really doing anything else. You may be listening to a podcast or have a show going, but when you're scrolling Instagram, there is so much information. It's information overload in the worst possible way. The short form content, the stories, the reels, the Instagram lives. It's just a lot. And then I think the worst thing about Instagram, and there are so many bad things, I won't even broach that topic fully. But the worst thing I found was the algorithm. More than half of what I was seeing as I was scrolling my feed, doom scrolling truly, they really was such an unproductive use of my time. Most of what I was seeing were ads or suggested content based on the people I follow and the other content that I interacted with. And the suggested content was hit or miss, but I was just like, I just want to see what my knitting friends are doing online. And there's a feature where you can like filter and have your feed only be people you follow or only be your favorites on Instagram. I have not had the app on my phone for months now, but I recall that being a recent feature by the time I deleted the app. So I was grateful for that, but it just felt like I was being advertised to, I was being fed a bunch of information. It was overwhelming, and I always felt really crappy after scrolling Instagram. I would sit down like I'm sitting right now with the intention of knitting, getting some extra rows in on my project. And I would open up Instagram just to see if I have any messages or other notifications, see if any people I'm interested in has posted something recently. And before I know it, I've been scrolling through Instagram Reels for 45 minutes. and I haven't knit a single stitch. And I would always feel so bad about it. So it got to the point where I was limiting the time I spent on Instagram. I have settings on my phone. They're called digital well-being settings. I think it's specific to the phone I have, which is a Samsung Galaxy, but I'm pretty sure other smartphones have similar settings where you can set screen time limits, not only general screen time limits, but also app limits. So at one point, I said I had restricted myself to only maybe 2 hours a day of Instagram use, after which point my phone would lock me out of the app. I had the option to override it, but the idea is that I honor that rule and not override it. I was not always successful at that. 2 hours eventually became 1 hour, which eventually became 30 minutes. And eventually it became 15 minutes. I was only spending 15 minutes a day, if that, on Instagram. So this was a gradual change over the course of months. I probably started this process a year ago. And yeah, so once I got down to the 15 minutes and I was pretty good with that, I got cocky. I was like, you know what? I've been doing 15 minutes a day. I'll override this setting and give myself a little extra time on Instagram. There's no big deal. 15 minutes is just really not that much time. So oftentimes I would override it and either eliminate the time limit for the day entirely, or add another 30 minutes, another hour or so. And I found myself creeping back up to that unhealthy level of time on Instagram every day. And so instead of continuing to backslide, I just decided to take a cold turkey approach and I deleted the app. But then another problem sort of made itself apparent to me after deleting Instagram and successfully staying off of it for the most part. I maybe log on to Instagram through my laptop once a week to just check if I have any messages and to see if any stories are interesting or anything like that. But even then, I'm probably not on it for more than 15 minutes because scrolling Instagram on a laptop is a totally different experience than on the smartphone. I don't think it's nearly as addictive and immersive, so that alone has helped me a lot. But what quickly became a problem after deleting Instagram from my phone was YouTube. The short form content is really what gets me. I will scroll and scroll, and if something will make me laugh, and I feel good for like a nanosecond. And I was always searching for that next impactful piece of content. And it's such an unhealthy habit. And very quickly, YouTube Shorts became the same problem for me that Instagram Reels had become before I deleted the app. And YouTube is different because, yes, they have the YouTube Shorts. I have yet to find a setting on my phone that removes YouTube Shorts. Like, I would like to not be shown them at all. That would be the ideal solution. But unfortunately, that is not the case. But I held on to YouTube. I held on to it because obviously I have a channel. I would get notifications about people commenting on my content. And then there are people that I'm subscribed to whose content I would love to consume. But very recently, I accepted that YouTube also had to go. It was affecting me in the same negative ways that Instagram was, and there was really just no way around it. And at this point, there's nothing on my phone that sucks my attention quite the way Instagram and YouTube did. And my screen time has dramatically improved. I think the crux of the problem was that when I started my Instagram account, I wanted to connect with other people who shared the same hobbies as me. I wanted to get inspiration for new yarns, new patterns, new designers. I think Instagram is a great place for that. And I figured, and Instagram, when I first started my account, was a huge source of inspiration. It fed my creativity in a really meaningful way. And I just felt like I was getting so much out of having that account and being active on Instagram. And when Instagram started to become counterproductive and almost harmful to my mental health and also my knitting practice, is when I decided to step away, because instead of being inspired, I felt overwhelmed. There was too much information. There was too many new patterns and new designers and new colors and new outfit inspiration. It was too much. There's such thing as too much of a good thing. And it got to the point where instead of being inspired, I felt like I was missing out. I felt like, oh, there's this new sweater. I really want to make it. I want to abandon all of my current project plans. I want to ignore my stash and go buy something new so I can knit that thing that so-and-so on Instagram knit. And I think Instagram is a big part of the reason my stash sort of ballooned to the point where I felt the need to do a no buy. And I also felt a lot of self-comparison. I wanted to post pretty pictures and I wanted to be proud of my Instagram feed. And then I would come across these profiles that had super aesthetic, cohesive, color coordinated Instagram feeds. And you could tell that they've curated their brand, and it's just, and I was like, my page isn't like that. My page isn't like that. And I don't know that I wanted it to be like that, but I liked it enough to think, well, should I be like that? Like, if my stuff isn't that good, should I even bother? And also Instagram, it almost became reflexive. I would unlock my phone, open the app without even thinking about it. I could have picked up my phone with the intention of doing something totally different, but the muscle memory kicks in and suddenly Instagram is open and I've spent 15 minutes scrolling reels instead of doing whatever it was I picked up my phone to do in the first place. And also too, connecting with the knitting community online took a huge backseat when it came to Instagram. And I think that was the thing I loved most about it when I created my account and I involved myself in the online fiber arts community, is the tons of awesome, cool people that I would be messaging with and interacting with their content. That wasn't really happening anymore. I wasn't posting, I wasn't creating, I wasn't sharing my projects and, fostering the connections that I had made. I was just consuming the cool creative stuff that other people were doing. And I was feeling bad that my cool creative stuff wasn't as cool and as creative as their cool creative stuff. And it was this really destructive cycle of self-comparison, jealousy, and it became toxic. So that's why I had to step away. And I mean, at the very surface level, it's just time. Like, the time I spent scrolling Instagram was by default time that I did not spend performing this craft. If I'm scrolling Instagram, I can't knit with one hand and scroll Instagram. That's literally not possible. That is a very long, meandering explanation for why you haven't seen me on Instagram lately, and you probably won't see much of me on that platform going forward. Time is so precious and so valuable, and knitting is such a slow craft. I wasn't knitting. I was consuming content vaguely related to knitting on Instagram, and I was taking longer to finish projects. I was, while at the same time being constantly influenced and inspired to start new ones. So there were two forces acting against each other. Since deleting the app, I've had a lot more time to knit. I've had a lot more time to read. And as I mentioned, I've also opened up more time for myself to make these videos. If you had asked me a year ago what my hobbies are, I would say knitting and making YouTube videos would be in second place. Even though I spent more time scrolling Instagram than I did making videos and knitting, but I would never consider Instagram a hobby. Instagram was never a hobby. I would be embarrassed to admit that. Oh, Instagram, social media is my hobby. I love social media. And like that alone should have told me, okay, then why am I spending so much time on it? It doesn't make sense. And so now knitting is my hobby, YouTube is my hobby, and reading is my hobby. And that is what I spend my time doing. There's no room for Instagram anymore because I'm spending my time doing things that truly fulfill me in a way that social media never has and never will. And you are probably like thinking to yourself, like, I'm watching you on YouTube, which is technically a social media. Like most of you would probably agree that YouTube is social media. Fair, totally fair. And the other way stepping away from Instagram has improved my knitting is that I spend more time on my own plans, knitting my own stash, making the projects that I want to make because I want to make them, not because I saw somebody online make it or I saw a new design or a new pattern from so and so. I've in a way isolated myself from outside influences when it comes to my knitting, and I'm not knitting in a complete vacuum because again, I still consume YouTube content, albeit much less than I used to. It's sort of eliminated a lot of the noise I was getting from the algorithm and people on Instagram. I feel like I'm not articulating this well because nothing we ever do is in a vacuum, right? But like, if you think about the video, I think it was my previous video where I went through my Ravelry patterns, right? I was going through all of the things that I bought and, I got distracted from those plans and I made something else instead. I am working my way through my Ravelry pattern archive. I'm knitting the things that I said I was going to knit. And there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of distractions from the new and shiny things or the social media sensation of the moment. And I always proudly say that I'm immune to peer pressure. But in a lot of ways I do stand by that. But with social media has a way of tricking you into thinking everything was your idea. You're being subliminally advertised to and influenced with every video you watch, every post that you see leaves a mark on your subconscious in such a way that it does impact the decisions that you make with your projects. So that about sums up why I haven't been as active on Instagram and why I think that's a good thing. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.